We talked about this. We talked about CO2 dissociation, right? Uh, yeah. Any questions up to here? This is what we have discussed, right? We have talked about entropy and duty to maximize entropy. Then this is yeah, this is the slide where we stopped. So this what is this plot is showing is we are discussing about CO2 dissociation. So this is the equation. CO2 will dissociate into CO plus half O2, right? So generally, as I mentioned, that this forward reaction is favored. Generally, CO combines with oxygen and gives CO2. But at certain conditions, let us say at very high temperatures or some pressure ranges, dissociation also becomes important. Then we account for that. Okay. Then we try to calculate the equilibrium concentration for different species. That is the objective here. So we take some dissociation constant alpha. We assume that an alpha of CO is produced, then an alpha by 2 of, because this is half of that, O2, and n alpha minus n alpha will be of CO2. Okay. So now the question is, how do we find alpha? That we talked discussed in the last class. We'll maximize entropy. Okay. And this is the, if you put actual numbers, what is the entropy and what is the T equilibrium, this is what you get. Okay, any questions here or this is clear? Yes, no? You are connected or not?
Sir, it is clear.
Okay, fine. So just okay, this is where we stopped, right? Last class. So as you see, let us take one temperature. So this is given, these curves are for different temperatures. Let us talk about let's say 1500K. So what do you see here? That we are talking about this equilibrium between CO and CO2 and its dissociated products. So let us say I start with this point. 10 to the power 0 means one atmospheric pressure. So I have an equilibrium of CO2 and oxygen at one bar pressure, and then what I do? I increase the pressure. So has anyone do anyone remember what is Le Chatelier's principle? Roughly, if anyone can tell what it
Sir,
did. Yes.
yes, sir, it was there in chemical equilibrium. If reactants and products are there,
Yes.
and if we increase the amount of reactants, the reaction proceeds in a manner such that whatever change we have made, it will oppose that. If we
Correct. Very
increase,
good. So basically, this is the statement. So if you have an equilibrium, established equilibrium, and if you do any change, okay, basically you can change the pressure or temperature or anything, then the system will respond. System will respond and try to counteract the change. It will act in a way such that your change can be minimized. It will try to go back to its initial conditions, something like that. So what is happening here? Let us say I start from here, and let's say I want to go right. I don't know how this curve looks. I just want to go right, means I want to increase the pressure, right? If I increase the pressure, what will happen? You see the dissociation. What is happening is, initially I have 1 mole of carbon dioxide. When it breaks down, it has 1 mole of CO plus half mole of O2. Okay, so which will occupy more volume? Carbon dioxide plus half O2.
sir, the
RHS.
RHS.
RHS. Why?
So more number of moles.
Yes, more number of moles. So at the same temperature, all the gases will occupy same volume if the mole number of moles are same. So here we have more number of moles, so it will occupy more volume. So what will happen if I increase the pressure? what is favorable? If I increase the pressure and the system wants to decrease the pressure, system wants to maintain its status quo. So what it will try to increase the number of moles or decrease the number of moles?
Decrease.
Decrease. So which reaction will be favored, forward or backward?
Backward.
Backward.
Backward. So if backward reaction is favored, CO concentration will increase or decrease?
Decrease.
Decrease.
Correct. So that is what you are seeing here. If you increase the pressure, CO concentration is coming down. Okay. So these type of theorems or principles are applicable when we talk about chemistry and thermodynamics. So this basically this discussion forms a background part of what goes into the calculation when we calculate for equilibrium concentrations or what is the temperature that is attained, or when we talk about polluting species, then this type of considerations you should be aware of. That's all I wanted to highlight here. Okay. Now another thing is, for equilibrium we talked about entropy. We said, right, we need to maximize entropy. Now there's one more parameter that we can use, that is called Gibbs free energy. Okay, I hope you might have heard of it. So it is defined as this H minus Ts. Okay, now what will happen if your entropy is increasing? G will increase or decrease?
Decrease.
Correct. So increase in entropy means decrease in G, or maxima of entropy means minima of G. Right. So when you want to calculate equilibrium concentration, you can either take entropy, whatever information is available. You can say that entropy will get maxima, or you can say that G will get minima. In either case, if it is minima or maxima, you can always use dG of mixture is equal to 0. Okay, G should not vary. The slope will be 0 here. So dG is 0. Now how do you calculate G? So you can take the intensive form of G. You can take the standard G naught plus RT log P initial by P naught. Or you can, if you have a mixture, then you can add different components G. So you will multiply by number of moles and then add that particular component, ith component. Okay. So this is how you can calculate for equilibrium. And finally you have, dG mix will be equal to 0 if you are talking about equilibrium, and this quantity basically will be 0. We'll see some examples. Okay, don't worry. So again, I'm just summarizing different ways in which we express first law. So we can write first law as dq is d E plus delta W, where delta W is generally we talk about PDV. Okay, PDV work, and TDS is greater than or equal to delta Q. This is coming from the second law. So I can say DE is less than or equal to, from all these equations I can summarize that DE is less than or equal to TDS minus PDV. Right? So these are some of the equations which we'll use in our numerical calculations. Okay. So let us begin with numericals. So any questions up to here, or should I go with the numericals? So your first chapter is over, theory part. Anyone has any questions or not?
No, sir. No questions.
Fine. Now let us look at some numericals. So mostly I have taken solved examples. So if you have doubt, you can also go to these books and look at them. So let us say we have a small low emission gas turbine engine. Okay. Let me show you a photo. This is how it looks. This I have taken from this Stern's book. So this is all. This I have just. I wanted to show you how an actual gas turbine engine looks like. So this is image from GE Aviation. This is your aircraft, large aircraft engine. Okay, cut section of that. I was actually the design engineer for third generation of this engine. Anyway, so let us come back to this. So this engine, it says operates at full load. This is the given load. Okay, it means that this is the output that this engine is giving, and equivalence ratio is given. Okay, 0.286. Generally, if you look at gas turbine engine or IC engine, usually the overall equivalence ratio is quite lean. Okay, you will have large quantity of air and smaller quantity of fuel, but most of the air is diluting it. Okay, when you see where the flame burns, it is also possible that many cases it is burning a rich flame. Okay, the rich in the sense that it will be a diffusion flame. We will cover diffusion flame. Actually, diffusion and premixed flames are two types, which we will be covering later. But in a crude way, we can say that we have a very rich flame for most of the cases, but overall equivalence ratio is low because dilution whole after burning also you will add some air. So anyway, we'll talk more detail about how the actual gas turbine or engine works in subsequent chapters. So just I wanted to give you some background because you are solving this numerical. So anyway, let's come back. So equivalence ratio is given, air flow rate is also given. So can you find out what is the fuel flow rate using these two numbers? Yes or no? If you have equivalence ratio, you have air flow rate. Can you calculate? And fuel is also given, so you can find the stoichiometric equivalence, stoichiometric ratio. You can find out that what is the proportion for stoichiometric fuel concentration, and for the present or the working conditions, we have equivalence ratio, we have air flow rate. So can you find the fuel flow rate using this information or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, fine. Okay, good. So we have these two numbers. Then also it is given is that the fuel composition is, fuel can be written like this. Okay. The question says find the fuel mass flow rate and operating air fuel ratio for the engine. Okay. Now one question to all of you. So generally when we say fuel, we say methane, propane. So it has whole numbers, CH4, C3H8, like that. So what is this? What is being done here? Why? How come you can have 1.16?
Sir, isotopes of the elements.
No,
It has
isotope.
mixture.
No. Don't go that complicated. So this is the equation for a compound. Compound, well, how come it will have fractional number? Can I have like 1/4 of a carbon atom in a molecule?
Sir,
Sir,
it
I
is
think
Sir, is it like
uh,
empirical formula?
Yes, you are going in the right direction.
sir, it must be a
It's
mixture
looking like
of
empirical
CH.
formula.
Correct. So it is basically a mixture of different hydrocarbons. Okay. So it will have different percentage of, let us say 80% is methane, 20% is butane, or something like that. So this is basically an average. If suppose you have C1 and C2 molecules, so you look at what is the total number of, let us say total number of, if we have 1 mole of fuel, what is the total number of carbon and hydrogen atoms present? Average of, let us say, methane and propane. So something like that, then you can write. So no, actual fuel will not have this number. Okay. But if you have a mixture, you can basically write it like an average number or something like that. So this is a representation of the all of the fuel, which is a mixture. Okay. So you read this statement. The equivalent composition of the fuel. Okay, it is natural gas, but what is the equivalent composition? Composition could be in this. If you strictly talk about one fuel, if I say methane, it has to be CH4. Whatever isotope or whatever is there, it cannot be 1.16. It has to be CH4. Okay, ethane will be C2H6 and like that. But if I have a mixture of methane and propane, methane or butane, something 3-4 gases are there, then I will, just to make calculations easy, I will write in this form. That's all. It is no, physically there will be no molecule in this proportion, but this is the ratio of carbon and hydrogen atoms present for the total given fuel. Is this clear? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So now let us solve this problem. So what is given? So generally, when you solve a numerical, my suggestion will be that follow these steps. Write what is given, what has to be found out, and then you solve. So it will be easy for you, and it will be easy for me also to give you marks if you are following proper steps. So given is equivalence ratio is given, molecular weight of air is m dot is flow rate. Flow rate of air is given in kilograms per second. Now molecular weight of fuel is not given, but I know that fuel is 1.16 of carbon and 4.32 of hydrogen. So I can calculate the molecular weight, equivalent molecular weight. Okay, 1.16 of carbon weight, atomic mass of carbon plus atomic mass of hydrogen into 4.32. So I get the molecular weight for 1 mole of a mixture to be 18.286 grams. Okay. Now what we need to find? We need to find m dot fuel and air fuel ratio. Okay. So this formula you might remember 3-4 slides ago we discussed. So for stoichiometric composition for air and fuel, remember this is not oxygen, this is air. So air has nitrogen plus oxygen. So this 4.76 is coming from there, right? 4.76 into A by the ratio of into molecular weights. Now we need to find A to use this formula, and this is the general form that we have discussed, right? This is clear where this equation is coming from. If people are here or not?
Sir, it is clear.
Okay. So now C, X and Y we know. This is what equivalent is given, and A we need to find. Okay. So this is what we have. From this I can calculate what is A. Okay, A is basically X and Y are given. X plus Y by 4 is A, which is 2.24. Now I use A is equal to 2.24 and I put it in this formula. I will get what is the stoichiometric air fuel ratio. Okay, 4.76 into A. A is this much. You know the molecular weights, so just multiply and you will get this number. So what it means is that if you have a stoichiometric air fuel ratio, then air and fuel will be in this proportion. 16 times air will be 16 times 16 number of moles of that of fuel. Okay. Now what is the actual air fuel ratio? Actual air fuel ratio is AF stoichiometric divided by phi, equivalence ratio. Equivalence ratio is given. This we have found out in the last slide. So I know what is the actual air fuel ratio. This is what was asked. So what is the answer? You can make a square around it. Now m dot fuel is also asked in the question. Now I know m dot air. I know the air fuel ratio from here. I can simply find out what is m dot fuel for the given conditions. Fine. So this was your first example. Now let us go to another example. Let us say I have a natural gas fired boiler. Let us look at the photo. So this is how a boiler looks like. So it operates with oxygen concentration of 3 mole percent in the flue gases. Has anyone heard what is flue gases?
No, sir.
Have you taken course of applied thermodynamics when you talk about boilers or heat transfer devices?
No, sir.
It is in subsequent semesters.
Okay, fine. So basically, when you talk about boiler, so you will have a fresh supply of fuel, and then burned fuel is going. That burned fuel is called flue gases. Okay, so this is basically we are talking about burned fuel after combustion. So in the burned gases, we have 3 mole of oxygen. So what can you say? The mixture is uh, rich, fuel rich, or fuel lean?
Fuel, definitely it is not fuel rich.
So it has to be, is it stoichiometric? Let us take ideal assumptions. Let us say whatever was available, that was burned properly, depending on what proportion it was there. Okay, no dissociation. So assuming that if you have 3 mole percentage of oxygen in flue gas, so what can you say? It is fuel rich or fuel lean or stoichiometric?
Fuel lean.
Correct. It cannot be stoichiometric because one reactant is still left and oxygen is left, so definitely it has to be rich in oxygen, which means it is fuel lean. Okay. Now the question says find the operating air fuel ratio and equivalence ratio, and let us say that this is a natural gas is methane. So this is what is given. Mole fraction of O2 in the fuel gas is 0.03. Molecular weight for methane is this. This is the average molecular weight for air. When you take the proportion of oxygen and nitrogen, and we know the molecular weight of both of them. So average for an air, we can say this is the molecular weight. Although there is no molecule which is air, but it is a mixture, right? Okay, this is what we need to find. Air fuel ratio and equivalence ratio 5. So let us see. Again, we'll go by the same equation. This is a very standard or general equation for this type of calculations. Okay, can anyone tell me any change in this equation from the last slide? Last question.
Sir, we define
Oxygen.
hydrocarbon.
Yes? Hydrocarbon.
Sir,
Sir, oxygen is left in the product side.
Residue oxygen.
Correct. So anyway, one is that instead of x and y, I am writing the proper number. More importantly, we have oxygen left. Generally, if it is a balanced equation, this will not be there. But we know for sure that oxygen is there, so that I will include in the equation, right? So from simple algebra, if you balance the number of species, you can see that LHS from LHS and RHS, 2A is number of oxygen atoms is equal to 2 plus 2 plus 2B, 2 plus 2 plus 2B. Okay, so I can write B is equal to A minus 2. Anyway, now mole fraction of oxygen is what? Number of moles of oxygen divided by number of moles of the mixture. So which mixture I am talking about here? LHS or RHS?
RHS.
Correct. So RHS, I will take the number of moles, and oxygen I know it is B. So this is the mole fraction for oxygen in the RHS, which I know is equal to 0.03, which is given to us, right? So from this, can you calculate what is A? With this given equation. Yes, one equation, one variable. So I can calculate A. A will be 2.368. So now air fuel ratio will be, we know this formula, 4.76 for air. Now I also know what is A from the last slide. So I'll just substitute the values and I will get air fuel ratio as 20.3. Okay. Now let us go back to the equation again. So this is what I just wanted to highlight. If you have excess of oxygen, it will be like this. For stoichiometric mixture, this will not be there. That's all. Okay, for A is equal to 2, if you have a stoichiometric mixture, that was also asked in the question. Let us go back to the question. Operating airfield ratio and equivalence ratio, treat the natural gas as methane. So equivalence ratio you want to find. So for stoichiometric ratio, we will calculate what is the airfield ratio. Okay, it comes out to be 17.1. So what is the equivalence ratio for the given conditions? We know the air fuel stoichiometric is 17.1. Air fuel actual is what you found out here, 20.3. Okay, so this turns out to be 0.84, which is fuel lean, right? So generally you will see that engines or gas turbines, these type of devices operate. We have a large proportion of oxygen, oxidizer actually, air. So it has like 20:1. So what it means? There are 20 moles of air per mole of fuel, right? Similarly, for gas turbines, some cases when you are burning larger hydrocarbons like diesel or kerosene, then you might also have 40:1. Okay, we'll see those examples. Okay, let's take another question. So we'll talk about a gas stream at atmospheric condition, which is a mixture of CO, CO2 and 2. Okay, which CO mole fraction is given? CO is given, CO2 is given, and the temperature of the gas stream is given. Determine the standardized enthalpy of the mixture on both mole basis and mass basis. Determine mass fraction of 3 component of gas. Okay. So again some calculations. Basically we'll need some values from table. Let's see if I have that here. Okay. Anyway, so this is what is given to you. Temperature is given, pressure is given. We have to find this. Now we know if you sum over all the mole fractions, it will be 1, right? So N2 is not given, but CO2 is given, CO is given. So if you add all that, 0.2, 0.1, it will be 0.3. So N2 will be 0.7. This is quite straightforward, right? Now, if I want to calculate the enthalpy of the mixture, I have to simply take sum over the mole fraction into enthalpy of that ith component, right? So that's what we are doing here. We are talking about, we are taking standard enthalpy plus sensible enthalpy if it is being heated. Okay, from the given question, can you say that that is being heated or that is at the standard temperature? Is it required or not required? Yes. Yes, someone was saying something. Please go ahead.
So the gases are heated to 1200 from 298.
Correct. So since this temperature is given, I can say that this is not standard temperature, reference temperature. So what it means is that gases are being heated and we need to account for sensible enthalpy. That's all. So that's what we are doing. For each component, we are writing separately. So we will get these numbers. This will be given to you, or we will have lookup tables where we can find this number. What is the standard heat of H naught F? What is the H at a given temperature? Okay. So based on that, you can just simply add all that and you will get H of the mixture. Okay, now let us find out the molecular weight. So we know these are the 3 components. We know the mole fractions. So we can find the molecular weight of the mixture. Okay. Now H is what? This is a specific enthalpy. So it will be a ratio of, if I want to express this in kilojoule per kilogram, then I will divide it with molecular weight of that mixture. So this is your H in kilojoule per kilogram. What was this earlier? This is kilojoule per kilomole. Okay, so just be careful what units are given and what you are trying to find out. So by using number of moles, I find out kilojoule per kilomole, and this values will be given in that unit. Okay. Now generally for engine calculations, or when you are burning some in a device, we are interested in how much heat or how much enthalpy is there per kilogram of fuel or per kilogram of the mixture. So this is just expressing in another units. Okay. Now this is mass fraction. This also, I hope you are aware how mass fraction and mole fraction are related. Okay. So now if I want to find the mass fraction of CO, so I'll use this, I'll use the mole fraction, and I will use the molecular weight of CO and molecular weight of mixture. So I know what is the mass fraction for different components. So this 0.1, 0.2, 0.7 are the mole fractions, 0.08, 0.28 and 0.62 are the mass fraction. Y stands for mass fraction. Is this clear? What people
Yes,
are
sir.
getting bored, or is it fine? So I think we have last example. Let me have a look, then we can stop. So we have 2 more examples. Anyway, I will try to finish it off. Okay. So now let us talk about adiabatic flame temperature. Okay. The question is asking to find out constant pressure adiabatic flame temperature for combustion of stoichiometric methane air mixture. Okay, this is important. Pressure is 1 atmosphere and initial temperature, this is standard temperature 298 K. Okay, and other assumptions are assuming complete combustion. So this is a very general and very common assumption that you can take. Okay, so CO is not there. N2 is also not breaking. Generally, for low temperatures, N2 is inert. Okay, it does not participates in the reaction, but when you go for higher temperatures, N2 breaks and form nitrogen oxide. So that is a very challenging issue in gas turbine. When you are designing a gas turbine engine, NOx is one of the major criteria because there are emission norms. So you need to tailor your engine in such a way that you reach to a temperature where NOx is low. Okay, let us this is something interesting. Let us go back to, so can anyone tell me how can I do that? So let us say I design an gas turbine engine. Okay, let us say this is the engine I have. This is a very specifically important design. This has the, I believe, the lowest nitrogen oxide emissions in the industry. Whatever aviation, whatever aircrafts you have as of today, this engine will have the lowest NOx among, to my knowledge. So what is special here, or what can we do? How can we design the engine? Let me give you a hint. So, which was the question? Okay. So we are assuming. So how come NOx will be formed? NOx will be formed when N2 gets dissociated, right? N2 reacts with oxygen, then it will form NOx. So from this statement, can you make any comment over what situation N2 will dissociate? I think I just now told also. So let me give you another hint. So N2 will dissociate at higher temperature or lower temperature?
Higher temperature.
Why do you think so?
More amount of energy will be required to break the bond of the nitrogen atoms.
Correct. So let us say that we know N2 dissociates at high temperatures and NOx will be formed at higher temperature. So then how do you design your engine? so that NOx is less. Let me go to give you a hint. So basically you can play with equivalence ratio in your design, right? So which region you would prefer, or which region you would like to avoid to keep your temperature low? So you know that you'll have different temperatures for different equivalence ratio, right? This is what is shown in this plot. So I
So
am
we'll avoid one
very good. Avoid one.
region, a region of one equivalence
Yes.
ratio.
Please repeat.
Sir, we'll avoid region near one equivalence ratio. Either we'll
Correct.
keep it high or low.
Good, good, good. So you can keep either high or low. Okay. And at the end of your course, we'll look at some examples where there are some designs which we keep it low. There are some designs where we try to keep it high. Okay. But we only try to avoid this region. There you will get a peak. There you will have highest NOx. Okay, let us come back to our numerical. So these are some practical aspects that later on when you are working on you will be using. Okay. So which example were we were talking about? Yeah, P4. Okay. So what do we do generally is either you integrate your CP with temperature, or you take an average temperature. You say that okay, my initial temperature is this. Let us assume the final temperature is roughly around this. This is around about what you get 2000, 2200, something like that. So let us say that this is anyway, this is given in the question. Otherwise, you can guess or look at from that graph what we have seen. What is the adiabatic temperature for a given fuel? Okay. So this is the initial temperature. This is the final temperature. So I'll take an average 0.5 of this. So then what I'll do is I'll take average value for specific heat at this particular temperature. Let us see how we do it. So this is the given equation, balanced equation for methane combustion. So I know number of moles of CO2, hydrogen and nitrogen. Now this table is given in books or in question you will be provided. So I know what is the enthalpy of formation as at 298 and specific heat at average temperature 1200 K. So this is what we have. Now using this table we'll calculate. Okay. So what is the heat of reaction? Heat of reaction is enthalpy of total enthalpy of products. This is enthalpy of reactant. So enthalpy of reactant will be sum of all the species involved. That will be equal to enthalpy of product and sum of all the species involved. Right. So for reactant we have one is for what? CH4, I think, CH4 plus oxygen plus nitrogen. So why this is number is 0 here for these two? Anyone?
Gaseous at room temperature.
Yes. So oxygen and nitrogen are at their natural stable state. So enthalpy of formation is 0. We'll take for methane, and that is what we have for reactant. This is in negative. Similarly for product, now you see we'll have this sensible heat also. Okay. And CP value we will take for 1200 K, and TA diabetic we don't know. We have assumed to take average, but we'll calculate now. So this is the delta T that this fuel has gone into. It has heated this species has been heated from room temperature to 298 to adiabatic flame temperature. So that is the Cp delta T is the heat supplied sensible enthalpy. So this is what we have from this equation. I know the H product is equal to H reactant, which is this one, this quantity. So if you add all this, can you calculate E adiabatic from this? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so this was what asked in the question. So it is just basically rearranging and multiplying and adding all that. So generally, if you want to be more accurate, you can integrate Cp with temperature if you know value at all temperatures, or you can take an average like this. Is this clear? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let us go to the last example for today. So we have constant volume, adiabatic flame temperature. That is what we need to find. Last example were for constant pressure. Now we'll talk about constant volume. Okay. Again, for this is the simplest hydrocarbon, right? We'll take methane air, and as the same assumptions that we took in the last example. Initial condition is again 298 K, pressure is 1 atmosphere. So since, if you remember last example what we did, last example we say that H reactant is equal to H product. Why? Because this is an constant pressure condition. Now we have constant volume condition, so I'll say that U will be equal for product and reactant. Okay, this will be equal when we have constant pressure, which is not the case. So what is U? U is basically H minus PV. So this can be written as 0. Now H reactant, H product will get from table minus PV. I can write into PV is equal to nRT, right? That's it. From this equation, we are substituting PV is equal to nRT and writing in this form. Okay. So now this H can be written as summation of all I species. Okay. For reactant and for product minus RU of this number. That's it. So H reactant, I know this enthalpy values will be given in the question, or you can look in the tables. Oxygen and nitrogen will be 0. So I can find this quantity, H of reactant. Similarly, I can find H of products. Okay. So this, if I use this equation, okay, for this equation, I know H, this part, I know this part, I know this part. I'll just substitute it back and try to find what is T adiabatic. So if I substitute this equation and this equation into this one, let me just draw it. So if I take value from here, and substitute it here, substitute it here, then this is what I'm going to get. Okay. No, sorry. This is just the expression of this. So basically I'm putting the value of R 8.3. This is the gas constant, number of moles you know, and delta T you know. Then next slide we'll do this. Next slide we'll put all this and equate this final equation. Sorry, this is this slide only. So I will use this value. Let me draw it again. Okay. So we have a equation in this form, right? What I'll do is I'll find all the three terms. So this is basically H of reactant, which has this value, right? Then we talk about H of product, which is shown in the summation form here, which has this value, We don't know the total exact value because I don't know what is the adiabatic temperature, but I can still write it in equation form. I can sum over it and I can write in this form. Okay, I got this. Now let us look at the third term, this term. So this term is shown here. I know the value of R, this is universal gas constant. I know the number of moles involved. So reactant and product both are 10.52 kilomoles. Okay. So if I take that number of moles and I know what is the initial temperature, but I don't know what is adiabatic temperature. So I'll write in this form. Initial I know, adiabatic is something I need to find out. So I have now all these three components with me. I have this, and I have this. If I add all the three, I will get 0. What is the unknown in that equation? Unknown is T adiabatic here, T adiabatic here. So if I add this and equate it to 0, I will get T adiabatic to be this number. Is this clear or not?
Sir, clear.
Okay. So let us quickly look at one last example. Let me see if we have time. Okay. We have almost about 5 minutes. So let us go and try to finish this. Okay. So if you remember, we talked about upper and lower heating values. So what is the difference? Can anyone tell me? What is the difference? Let me remove this. What is the upper and lower heating values?
Enthalpy of vaporization of water, latent heat.
So either I will account for water to be in the vapor form, or I will assume that it has condensed to liquid. That will give me lower and higher heating values. Upper and lower, or lower or higher, whatever. Okay. So that is what we need to find out for N-decane per kilomole of fuel per kilogram of fuel. Two ways to express different units, that's all. Molecular weight is given, and now enthalpy of evaporation is given. Okay, so first part tells us about gaseous N-decane. Let us say that it is gaseous and then you calculate. Now let us say if you have a liquid N-decane and then you calculate. Okay. So let us, first step is you write a balanced equation. Once you do that, then we know that difference between upper or lower heating value is basically your delta enthalpy of latent heat of vaporization. Okay. This is the heat of reaction or heat of combustion, which is equal to reactant enthalpy minus product enthalpy. This is for any general case. Now, this is what I have already explained. So delta HC is the reference state, and we need to look into basically latent heat. So for reactant we have this, and product we have this. Basically summation of different species, that's all. So for heat of combustion for water, okay, we have, no, it should be decane. Okay. So for, if we are talking about higher heating value, then I can say that standard heat of enthalpy of formation plus for methane, decane plus CO2 plus water. Okay, this is reactant, this is product. Understand what I am doing here? I am using this equation. So H reactant is, what is the reactant? Decane. What is the product? Product will be minus. So this is the product, right? Now can anyone tell me where is the missing? This should also be the reactant also contains oxygen and nitrogen, which is not being accounted for. Why?
Room
Yes.
temperature 0 है वो. Standard
because
data formation.
correct. We are talking about standard reference state. So enthalpy of formation is 0 for oxygen and nitrogen. Okay. Is this clear to everyone? Why oxygen and nitrogen are not written here? Because they are anyway 0. So we just need the fuel enthalpy. Okay. Now this is for basically what we do is we for lower heating value we'll when we are considering this to be liquid, then we'll take into account the heat of formation of gaseous, and this is the heat of formation for gaseous water vapor. And what is this HFG? Can anyone tell me? You might have seen this in thermodynamics first year. HFG.
So latent heat.
Latent heat
Correct.
of vaporization.
So we'll take into account what is the latent heat, and based on that we'll calculate. Okay. Anyway, we are running out of time, so let us stop now. Again, next class we'll discuss this example again. Okay. So this is what we are basically trying to highlight in that last example. So you need to calculate for liquid when you are considering liquid. Okay, this is another. Let us stop for today. I will upload those slides so you can look at it, and next class we can